Hi, I'm Edda, and this is Beauty Flip, where I help ordinary people see what's extraordinary about them. Today, we're going to figure out why we're so bitchy. Let's go. Let's dive in. Hi, all you fabulous human beings. Wow. So there's a part of the uneven playing field that we're going to get in today that, you might not like, because I call this part, you're a bitch, I'm a bitch, we're all bitches. And if you can't understand that you are a bitch and everyone else around you is a bitch, you're going to struggle actually letting go of the uneven playing field. Because here is a part of what is happening in our world today. I don't know how much of this is just the constant drumbeat of the craziness of what I would call reality TV show and what it does to our brain. But let's just say that reality TV is a cultural car crash in slow motion. It basically is so messy, so conflictual, so staged, and every single episode there is someone throwing wine, calling names, going all, if you will, gangster on another person, stabbing them in the back, creating like schisms in companies, in friend groups, so that somebody can prove somebody else wrong. This is every single one of the Housewives, of Below Deck, of the Vanderpump Rules. This is like all the crazy ways that we have MasterChef, Hell's Kitchen, and all the insane competition shows. This is every episode of Survivor. So are we now living in reality TV? Is that the world that we are in? Because it sort of feels like it. It sort of feels like, if you just try sometimes to resolve something with someone, they refuse. Maybe they're conflict avoidant, but maybe they feel so gangster inside for tearing you down. I do believe that this is just a really sort of ugly side of what we as humans are dealing with right now in, I don't know if it's all countries, but it certainly is in America, where we very much have decided either to avoid conflict or to side against each other and to prove that the other side is just so horrible, wrong, and bad. And very specifically, this goes from everything from our politics to most behavior that you can find. I'm not going to just say within women's groups, but specifically very much so. And why, if we look at the psychology, does this happen? Well, I hate to say it, but when you're in a world where you feel like you are competing for sort of your very worthiness, you are going to decide how other people, you're going to look for how other people, you're going to prove that other people are less worthy than you. So we're going to end our sort of worthiness series kind of like on a sour note, I guess. Sorry for the sour note, but we're going to do it. Yeah, so, hey bitch, I'm your bitch. Aren't we all bitches? Because the truth be told, you could just be having your cup of coffee and someone has decided things about you that just maybe have a grain of truth, but the story that they wield and how it is that you're drinking your coffee suddenly turns into a shitstorm of people turning against you. Has this happened to you? Have you basically been doing like a decent thing, an earnest thing, and before you know it, you have people who just want to come for you, right? Like, Why are you coming for me? There's this crazy thing where we think like slap down culture, having like the edgy thing to say is somehow so powerful. And yet maybe for that 1 second, it's powerful, because maybe what you do for 1 second is you slap another bitch down, but maybe that's where it ends. And that's what is so disturbing to me about this bitch culture that we live in right now. This sort of gangster having the best last statement, the last word, the last way that we want to prove that we are better than another human being is that it ends in a soundbite. But then you gotta kind of live. You gotta keep on living. You gotta keep on. But then there's the mess of the soundbite. So where we watch reality TV and we see the mess, and man, I'm telling you, if you don't watch reality TV, like those messes are like tsunami level messes. They're just like all over the place. They're happening everywhere in public, on planes, in restaurants, at kids' birthdays, parties, at people's weddings. They're happening where, you know, like the FBI is showing up at people's houses, and it is for us to sit there and partake and watch. Crazy. So if you watch, for example, Inside America's Next Top Model, which is the documentary, you will hear them say over and over and over again, like they needed, in order to keep the ratings, they needed the show to become more and more insane, and they needed to do things that were definitely over the line to these human beings so that they could get better ratings. So they did things that were very dubious. They put models in very crazy scenarios, and if a model found themselves in very crazy scenarios, they taped it and they edited it and they put it up there for TV. You know, or if you want to, you could just like quote like Bethany Frankel. Listen to this. She says, oh my gosh, this was in Vanity Fair. I think this was an article that was written 2021. And she says, ultimately, you know, that it's a drug. Fame is a drug, and money is a drug, and attention is a drug. And the housewife's world is designed to get you hooked, and then it destroys you. It destroys your marriage, your friendships, and your sanity. And I think she goes on to like tells you like people like literally like get sent to prison, they get divorced, they like, it is just a crazy scenario of people's lives being filmed. And the crazier it could get, like, I know we all know this to some degree or another, that this is all staged for really good entertainment, but we must question what it is doing to our reality and the way that we are treating each other. Because right now we are treating each other really poorly. So I'm just gonna give you some edification, some stats about reality TV and why it is getting enculturated into our world. So 60% of all US households, so this is just the US, but it's a world phenomenon, watch reality TV weekly. Basically, the core demographic are 18 to 34-year-olds, and it is a global industry of $40 to $75 billion. Ultimately, in the US, they pull in $13 billion from TV, but also, just to name sponsors, $2.3 billion are made on advertising just alone. Okay, so yeah, we all like to watch a good car crash sometimes, but I watch this. See, when I watch this, and then how, as a manager or a coach of people who are managing people, there is a pervasive similarity between how people show up now to work and in their lives that feels pretty much like they're taking notes from these shows. I am not sitting here to complain. I am sitting here to question, what the heck do we do with the fact that we are learning how to deal with conflict from the housewives, or from people who, like, in some degree or another, are conniving to win hundreds of thousands of dollars and would do anything to tear people down. This is becoming our culture. This is becoming America. I am sitting here complaining and raving. To what end, Edda, do we care? I guess to one degree, just like to name it. To another degree, let's talk about how you can navigate through the part of the uneven playing field that is built for all the bitches, because it is a very big part of this uneven playing field. And this, unfortunately, is the part when you try to, like, hang up that phone when they're like, hello, playing field calling you. We have your reservation. You're like, no, I want to cancel. Unfortunately, sometimes you don't get to cancel because the bitches show up on your doorstep ready to, like, enact some part of, like, something they saw on reality TV where they're going to throw you. They're going to throw you down. They're going to tear you down. They're going to say that sound clip that they've been working on so hard that everyone snapping, loving, liking, taking them to the next world of some gangster person. Because this is the fantasy. This, remember I talked about how alluring fantasies are. If we are not careful, this becomes one of the fantasies that somehow, if you can be so gangster, your bitch can be so, like, with an edge, tear people down with some crazy little saying, the way you're going to put people in their place, that somehow you have evolved to the next level of the game. I hate to tell ya, it's where it locks you in deeper. So how do we get around our own bitchiness? How do we get around those bitches? Step one, own your own bitch. You gotta own up to the fact that you are maybe not as bad as the housewives. Maybe you don't do what they do on Survivor, but you are a bitch. You just are. You're a bitch. So I would say first part of this week's homework is to kind of sit down with yourself and look at your bitchiness and look at where you have, going back to the top of the hour, ill will for people, ill will for potentially so many people. And if you look at the names that you're writing down, write them down, write them down, write them all down. Write down why they deserve for your animosity, your venom, your hate, your just like ill will, whatever flavor of ill will it is. Write it down. What you will begin to see is that there is a reflection of something that you haven't wanted to see. Because what's missing in every one of those episodes, every single episode of reality TV, is the mirror of why we have the ill will in the first place. For every name that you wrote down, ill will actually is showing you that somehow you felt threatened or diminished or unseen or perhaps injured. That maybe there was a boundary that was crossed. And I mean, I think to some degree you could say, yeah, I know that. But what we miss is what to do with that boundary and what to do with those places where perhaps we do feel threatened or diminished, where perhaps we feel unseen or injured. It is ill will, a defensive adaptation. It is not a character flaw that you're a bitch and that I'm a bitch and that we're all bitches. It is that we feel threat. and threatened and afraid and vulnerable and not sure how to deal with the vulnerability. We, my lovely little human beings, lovely bitches, are really wanting to be in what we would call that fight mode. So what's happening in the brain with this moment of bitchiness is that once again, you have this sort of fight or flight moment. Your frontal cortex sort of shuts down, which, oh, by the way, if we remember, is where we do problem solving. So that's asleep, checked out. And then what gets triggered is your amygdala. And your amygdala, if you can remember, is like fight, flight, or freeze. And you are in, and here's the crazy part, like it's not just a moment of fight, flight, or freeze. You're in an elongated fight, flight, or freeze. And there's another part that gets triggered because your brain is looking for data. So it is tapping into the part of like where memory is in your hippocampus. Now, some of that memory might be with this person who you just wrote down all of their names, all of the ways you've been injured by all of those people, and where you have ill will for them. Some of that might be true, but some of it is also based on what your brain has internalized as data that is important. So if we are living and watching, 60% of us, reality TV where we see similar acts occurring between people, we internalize their fights and how they went through it, which is not all that productive. It's usually very much great TV. Love that little car crash of a moment where two women are going for each other, throwing wine into each other's face. Now, maybe you don't throw wine or the other people around you aren't throwing wine, but damn, so much of our lives is turning into one reality Karen show after another, where we are turning cameras on each other, where we are wanting, even if we don't have a camera, ways to tear each other down and have people witness it. It's crazy. It's crazy. So step 2, as I'm pointing out, is you got to look at the injury. You got to look. Sorry. You kind of got to put on your, if you will, we'll call it your mechanic clothes. And you got to lift the hood. And you got to look at what's going on in your engine. Yeah, you do. You just got to. Like, if you're being a bitch, there's a very good chance that there's something under the hood that says, I am injured and I am in a fight, flight, or freeze mode. And I am going to fight this one out and be a bitch. I'm going to have ill will and want to have this person get injured in some way. Maybe not physically injured, but injured so that they can feel my pain. Because when you are in pain, not just you, all of us bitches, there is a part of us that wants others to feel our pain. Not because we're cruel. No. We do this because it is the way to witness something that feels unbearable. It is the way we share so that we can survive. It is a way to demand the recognition. So unfortunately, our bitchy little behavior, our ill will, our way that we want to some degree or another, join the cast of Survivor and Housewives is because we are trying to communicate our pain. Which now brings me to the third list. You might not feel safe enough to communicate your pain to those people that you wrote on your list. But you gotta communicate it somewhere. You gotta communicate it. So write it down, or if you're like, I'm not gonna write, do a voice memo to yourself. Do something where you actually first talk about the pain. I encourage you to get some sort of, it doesn't need to be necessarily therapy, but coaching. Because the best solution is ultimately resolution with those people on your list. And so finding someone who can coach you how to have productive conversations with those people on your list is the answer. If some of those people are non-responsive, then you must find other ways to come to some resolution for yourself. And this one is a little bit of a tougher little twist, but truthfully, to get out of the bitch swirl, which we pretty much live in a constant bitch swirl right now, where people literally are signing up for roles that are just all about who is more vile than the next, who is more vicious than the next. We got to find resolution. So then resolution comes to a place where to find perhaps other people who will witness and support you in your painful moments in life. And to find, to some degree, not just a therapist. Therapists are great. I love therapists. Therapist is amazing. Not just a coach, but some sort of community. Because to some degree or another, what lingers is the question of whether, where we started today, you are worthy. Whether the attacks that came to you, whether purposeful or not, those places where you were injured, speak to some level of your lack of worth, your lack of have, or your innate have-nottedness. Yeah, it's just so crazy. This constant drumbeat of telling you you're not enough, you're not worthy, you don't matter, is at the core, in the back of our heads, a very real concern. When we think of ill will, your bitch, my bitch, all of our bitches, to some degree or another, you're not just fighting the people on your list. They are just representations of the caste system by which you are already being told how worthy you are and whether you are fitting into the haves and ultimately the various echelons of the haves. So maybe you're baseline have, but you're not like full on like high gold card carrying member have. So we're looking at this sort of crazy way in which we are already amped because we feel the places where we are being told, maybe openly told, and maybe just the pervasive drumbeat of each and every day told that you do not fit in. Yeah. Take that in for a moment. You really need to, eyes wide open, experience that pain. That pain goes much deeper than anything that these people did on your list. Well, I'm speaking presumably. Some people might have done some pretty horrible things on your list. What I am trying to say is you need to attune yourself to the deeper call, to the deeper messaging that is being given to you, that you're not worthy. And then, somebody does a thing like they just cut you off in traffic and you are off to the races. I don't know. That happens to all of us. I assume it has happened to you. My point being, my lovely little human beings, is that you will only be able to help your bitch, help tend to the deeper real needs if you actually look at this place that you are being told you are unworthy, where you are being told over and over and over, even before you wake up in the morning, that you're unworthy. And what to do with that. I know this one is the hardest ask of today. But this one is actually the most gangster of them all. And in its most refined rebellion. So this final place I take you, all the way from the bitchiness of our world, is ultimately the journey. If you look across all major religions across the world, they basically all say the same thing, that we are here, humans, come here from heaven, or whatever they call it, from the divine, that humans come here, that we raise our hand, hello, pick me, take me, bring me down to earth. And the idea is that we are here to go on a journey. And you are given two parts of yourself, the conditioned self and the sacred self. And the job for each and every one of us is to heal that split between the conditioned and the sacred. And to some degree or another, to remember what we forgot, which ultimately is that we are sacred, which is hard when you're dealing with your list of all the people who've done you wrong and all the ways you want to put them in their place. Yeah, right? Because that needs to happen to some degree or another. We need to put people in their place. Yeah. At another degree, you need to decide whether you will stay in this conditioned world, the conditioned self of fear and ego and survival and wounds and programming and inherited scripts, or to honor that you are divine. Divine because you exist, just is, that you are whole, you are unbroken, you are connected at all times to the divine because you are alive, and that your truest nature is a loving nature, and that when we quiet ourselves, there is nothing but wisdom. There is nothing but the sacred knowledge of who we are. Yeah. I'm not saying, I never do say, it's easy, but damn, bitch, isn't it worth it? Isn't it worth finding those moments of your glory and knowing, oh, and this is a hard one, that you have never been separate from God, never are separate from anyone. This great call from bitchdom to divine is maybe not easy, but is the reason why we're here. And in some religions, they speak of perhaps this will take multiple lifetimes. And there's grace in all of it. And there's grace in your mistakes, and there's grace in your learning. So there's grace in you having so much frustration and hurt and anger, and potentially even wanting to put on your biggest bitch moments, your biggest bitch personality. There's grace in all of it. So this isn't a judgment. It is a reflection and an invitation and hopefully a good laugh. Because damn, we all have that aspect of ourselves, right? We are all bitches. Said it from the top. So my lovely little bitches, I hope today that you take the real time to do those lists. And I hope that you create avenues to say what you need to say to people who really potentially have injured you. And I hope that in that there is healing and connection. And if you can't do it with the people on your list, that you find people to witness your pain. I should mention one thing. Your name might be on other people's lists, and they might have some things to say about how you've injured them because, oh, baby, no matter how nice you are also still human, and your humanity sometimes steps on other people's humanity. Any hoozle bagoozle. Let's get back to what we were talking about. I hope you take this assignment on, and I hope you do it deeply, fully, with great love for healing. Trust that there is something really powerful. And yeah, it might hurt like a motherfucker to do this one. Okay, you fabulous bitches. I hope you do this. We'll dive more into it. It's a big one, I promise you. And truth be told, you are worthy. You're worthy of it. Thank you all for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed your little bitchiness and my little bitchiness. And maybe you'll do those lists. They're worth it. You're worth it. I'll see you next week.